night, friends. E.C. Maltby here, Senior Pastor of the True Holiness Saints Center in the beautiful city of Conway, Arkansas. And you know what time it is. It is Wednesday Word time. So what is our Wednesday Word for tonight, Pastor Maltby? Our Wednesday Word is toxic. More specifically, I want to talk about the toxic people who come in and out of your life. So what is a toxic person? In my opinion, a toxic person is someone who causes unnecessary frustration in the lives of others. That's a toxic person. They always cause unnecessary frustration, unnecessary difficulty, unnecessary trouble. A toxic person, when they come around, they always make things unnecessarily more difficult. Let me give you our social media quote for tonight. Our social media quote is simply a thought or a thesis that we encourage you and challenge you to put on your social media. Here it is. Toxic people create toxic environments. Now that's good teaching. Toxic people always create toxic environments. When a toxic person comes on the scene, they always cause unnecessary stress and difficulty to your life. Toxic people always create toxic environments. And so tonight, here's what I want to do. I want to share with you 3 tips on how to deal with the toxic people you have to interact with throughout your day. If you're writing notes, write this down. Tip number 1, you've got to minimize your interaction with them. Yeah, you've got to learn how to minimize your interactions with them. Here's what I know for sure. You can't always completely cut a toxic person out of your life. As much as we want to, we can't totally dismiss all of them. Why can't I cut them out of my life, Pastor Maltby? And there are several reasons, but usually it's because the toxic person is an immediate family member, or the toxic person is a coworker, or the toxic person travels in the same social circle that you travel in. Maybe the toxic person is a person who attends the same church as you. But totally cutting them out of your life is just not practical at this time. So when you can't completely cut out a toxic person from your life, you've got to learn to minimize your interactions with them. You have to decide if and how the interaction will take place. This is important for you to establish necessary boundaries when communicating or dealing with toxic people. Now, why do you say that, Pastor Maltby? Why is it important for you to establish the boundaries? Because most toxic people would never admit how their behavior or how their attitude has negatively impacted the people around them. If you talk to the toxic person, it's everybody else's fault. If you talk to the toxic person, everything is going wonderful. So you have got to take charge and minimize the interaction that you have with the toxic person. Here's what the Bible says. In fact, the Apostle Paul, in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 33. Paul says, don't be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Toxic people always create a toxic environment. So the first step in dealing with toxic people is to minimize your interaction, because the more time you spend with them, the more unnecessary difficulty and drama you go through. So you've got to learn how to take toxic people in small, manageable doses. That's what tip 1 is all about. Learning to minimize your interactions with them, learning to take them in small, manageable doses. So here are 3 things you can do to minimize your interactions with them. First of all, whenever you've got to communicate with them, you go see them instead of them coming to see you. You go see them instead of them coming to see you. Why do you say that, Pastor Maltbia? And let me give you an example. If you and a toxic coworker have got to have a conversation face to face, you go to their office, you go to their cubicle, don't let them come to yours. Why? Because if you go to them, you can leave whenever you get ready. But if they come to you, you got to wait till they get ready to leave. So the first thing about a toxic person minimizing your interactions with them, you always be the person to go see them. Never let them come see you. If you guys have got to spend time together outside of work, maybe it's a family member, you always go to their house, but don't invite them to your house. Why? Because when you've had enough, you can get your stuff and leave. But then a second way to minimize your interactions with them, if you're going to the same social event together, maybe they're a friend, maybe they are a family member, but if you're going to the same social event, never ride together with them in the same vehicle. Never take the same form of communication. Why? Because you don't want to extend the time you got to spend with a toxic person. So maybe you tell them, I'll get my own Uber. Maybe you tell them, I know gas is high, but I'm going to drive my own car because I need to make another stop. But never go together. Always get your own transportation. So number one, always go see them. Never let them come see you. Number two, never ride anywhere together to a work or a social event. And here's the third one. Always practice the buddy system. Yes, always practice the buddy system. So if you've got to go and interact with them, maybe it's a family reunion, a family event, maybe it's an event sponsored by your job, maybe it's at church. When you know that you're going to have to spend time with them, practice the buddy system. In other words, always bring somebody else along. Because when you bring somebody else with you, you both can deal with them together. When you bring somebody with you, you're not the center of attention. There's always somebody there to help you to combat their negative energy. The first tip with dealing with toxic people is to minimize your interactions with them. But then secondly tonight, never give a toxic person the attention they seek. Never give them the attention that they seek. One thing I know for sure about toxic folks, they absolutely, positively crave attention. They thrive on making everything, every situation about them. It's all about their goals. It's all about their achievements. It's all about their choices. It's all about their problems. It's always about their opinions. It's all about their personal preferences. One thing I know about toxic people, they crave attention. They want the whole world to revolve or evolve around them. It's always about them and what they feel or what they want in any given moment. But to minimize it, you cannot give them the attention that they're seeking. The more attention you give them, the worse they become. Whatever you do, don't you dare allow everything to revolve around a toxic person. Because a toxic person thinks that everything is about them. They tend to have what the church world calls a takeover spirit. They take over every project. They take over every conversation. They have a takeover spirit. But I like what the book of Proverbs says in Proverbs 26 and 20, the A clause. Here's what it says. Without wood, a fire goes out, In other words, Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, gave us some good advice. He says, don't you dare fan the flame of attention their way. Don't you do anything to bring more attention to their toxic behavior and attitude. Refuse to get in any argument with them. Refuse to go back and forth with them. Refuse to indulge their pettiness and all of their gripes and complaints. Don't fan the flame without wood, a fire, even of a toxic person, goes out. When that toxic person is creating unnecessary stress for everybody else, you got to learn how to ignore them. You got to learn how to minimize what they're doing. Never fan the flame. Point number 2, never give them the attention that they seek. And then here's the last one, and I'm going to get out of here. When it comes to those toxic people that you can't totally cut out of your life, immediate family members, co-workers, people that travel in the same social circle, folks you go to church with, the first thing you've got to do, you've got to minimize your interactions with them. Secondly, never give them the attention that they seek. And here's the last one. Never trust a toxic person. Please, never trust a toxic person to keep their word with you. Never trust a toxic person to keep their word. Toxic people will lie to you, and a toxic person will lie on you. Now, maybe you ought to type that in the comment section. A toxic person will lie to your face, and as soon as you turn your back, they will tell a lie about you. I like what Proverbs 20:19 says. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. Never tell a toxic person anything that you don't want to see headlining the 6 o'clock news. Never tell a toxic person anything that you don't want repeated multiple times. Why? Because a toxic person cannot be trusted. They can't be trusted with the confidentiality of your life. They can't be trusted with juicy information because a toxic person never keeps their word. Toxic people will always spread confidential information just because they want to be the center of attention. But here's another reason toxic people can't be trusted. Because they seldom, if ever, keep their commitments. The old folks would say it like this: their word isn't worth 2 dead flies. Y'all ever heard that before? A toxic person's word is not worth 2 dead flies because a toxic person never keeps their word. If a toxic person tells you they're going to help you on a future project, if a toxic person tells you they're going to be somewhere at a certain time, if a toxic person tells you you can count on them, dear heart, you better always have a plan B, because toxic people make it a career of letting folks down. And so if you've got to take the word of a toxic person, please, ma'ams and sirs, have a plan B. Our Wednesday word is toxic. More specifically, it's about the toxic people who create unnecessary frustration, drama, and stress in the lives of others. So in order to deal with toxic people, those people you can't totally shut out of your life, number 1, you've got to learn to minimize your interactions with them. Number 2, never give them the attention they seek. And finally, dear hearts, never trust their word, because their word is not worth 2 dead flies. Until we speak again, my friends, be blessed.